Everyone. Wow. So today we are going to be talking about Survivor season 42, doing our cast assessment of the 18 new castaways that were officially announced literally a month early of the Survivor season 42 premiere, which is insane. So we're going to talk about it. And my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and we're so excited for this cast. I feel like Survivor 42. It feels like we've been waiting a long time for it, but I don't know whether that's just because like we also waited a really long time for 41 or what. But I'm super excited to get to be talking about it.
Literally so much too much TV honestly is happening right now. Like every show is going to be ending in March and then so many shows are going to be starting in March. It is like where is all the free time going besides watching TV? But for this cast assessment, some of the like sources that we used in order to gain some information, the parade article that has all of the like little questions, pet peeve, what survivor that you want to play like, your hero, questions like that. We looked at all of those, which same problem as last cast assessment. Mike Bloom, if you ever watch this, I cannot navigate that gallery. The text box is like 2 inches big and you have to scroll through. It is impossible to read. I hate it so much.
I always copy and paste it to a different window just because I cannot deal. And it's like it's so weird because the image always has like an inch border around it, and it's like just please put that border like make that part of the text. So
Yeah, I can't even imagine trying to look at it on a mobile device. Like, it would be so impossible. I'm just like, stick it on one page and you can scroll through the page at once because it's also like, it's listed. You have to go like 1 through 18, click right to see. If I wanted to see the first person again after I'm already at person 10, because I was like, oh, did they have a similar job? Are they from a similar state? Then I'm like, click, 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 click. And then it has to load in between each one. It was a pain in the butt.
yes, but we even though we did not like the formatting of that article, I personally found that the like most informative because it's the one that has like their whole interview and whatever. And the Entertainment Weekly stuff and the CBS interviews, those were like interesting, but I feel like comparatively you get so much more from this like questionnaire, even if we know that people don't always answer truthfully.
Yeah, the questionnaire is very informative. And then I think the videos that Entertainment Weekly and Survivor CBS on like their Instagram and TikTok posts, those are helpful to see like, okay, what do these people sound like? How do they talk? Do they seem like they come off well on camera or not? And that can sort of influence maybe how they can get along with other people on the island. But also, like, those Entertainment Weekly videos can be a little awkward because it seems like they're just talking to like a laptop screen. So those don't necessarily translate. Oh, if they're awkward talking to themselves on a laptop, maybe they haven't like done that a lot. So they're a little bit less like, oh, bubbly, outgoing on camera, but then on the island, they're like less awkward because they're not talking to an inanimate object.
Yeah, but I feel like it also gives you like a good idea of like how they talk and like how they
Mhm.
are. Especially one of the Entertainment Weekly things was like, what's your most embarrassing story? And I feel like that gave like a pretty good idea of like who they are as a person. Like, what do they consider embarrassing? How do they tell this story? So,
Yeah, that one was really cool. You can tell like who can tell stories better, who's more funny, maybe, who's able to like maybe make up some parts of their story to make it more fun and like be animated while telling their story versus other people like I don't get embarrassed. I don't have one. So also good for people that can think on top like of their feet. Like, hey, what's an embarrassing story? Go.
mm-hmm.
But overall thoughts for the cast, I think this is a really, really fun cast. Everyone seems very, very interesting. However, there does seem to be a lot of like archetype casting. Like you have the mom, you have like the bro guy, surfer dude, you have like the younger people that are students, you have like the survivor nerds. It does seem like a lot of these people on the cast, you can definitely fit them into some kind of archetype.
Yeah, but I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing because I feel like maybe we had a similar complaint with season 41 where it seemed like there were a lot of archetypes that they were going for, but season 41 was still like amazing. So I feel like this cast, one of the positives is that it seems like there's not a lot of recruits in this cast, which I personally am always a fan of, but yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like not a lot of recruits, but it does seem like a lot of these people are fans of the show and even like super fans of the show. So many of the people saying how like they've seen all the seasons, they play online survivor like games, they play a lot of board games, they're like super competitive and they've like done their research and homework for like challenges and strategy coming down to the final 3. So I guess that'll be interesting to see because a lot of times people say, like, oh, when you have a lot of super fans on the cast, it can be very game body in that way. But also, I feel like with Survivor 41 having all of those random twists and like the idols where you have to say random phrases, the season 42 people haven't seen season 41 since they were filmed back to back last year. So it's going to be like a whole clean slate where these people coming into 42 won't know about like the three-way idol where you have to say a random phrase. So even if these people are students of the game, since they haven't seen all of these new changes for 41, I think that sort of helps get rid of the game bodiness because you have to be kept on your toes so much.
Yeah, and I think it's also those random twists and turns because they're so random also make it difficult to strategize around just because you don't know like how to necessarily do it because I feel like one of the things with 41 is it introduced a lot of things that have like contingency plans like oh you get this but only if this condition is fulfilled and so that requires a lot of different plans and plans on top of plans and I feel like the more complicated a plan is the more or the less likely it is that it's actually going to happen. So, yeah, I feel like just the nature of the twists that they put in make it so it's more difficult to strategize around.
Yeah, especially if there's an hourglass twist, Alyssa. I hope they haven't brought that back because if it's filmed back to back, they wouldn't have known the like fan reaction from those kinds of twists. So I do wonder.
But I feel like they would know the like player reaction and it sounded like a lot of the players weren't super happy. So,
That's true. That's true. So we can hope and we'll see for this upcoming season. I think something interesting also with this cast is the age. There are 5 people that are aged 24 and below, and then so the rest of the 18 would be like 25 and above. So I felt like that was interesting because it seems like it's more of an older cast. Because even for people in their 20s, when they're like 29 versus 22, 23, I think that is a big difference in like age, where you're at in life, stuff like that, versus, even though they're still in their 20s.
I also feel like it's one of those things where we've talked before about the obstacles to people being able to go on Survivor, like if they have jobs, families, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like one of the things with COVID is it has narrowed down the group of people who are like able to drop everything and go to like play on Survivor. So I wonder if that is part of why we're seeing like maybe a different cast than we would normally.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're going to talk through this cast of 18 new people that are going to be on Survivor season 42. We're doing alphabetical order for the people's first names. And so, with that, we have used those sources, like we said, the article and the videos that are online. And then next time, we'll be doing like a tribe reactions. So, for these reactions here, we haven't looked at the tribe divisions for these people. So, not saying like, oh, yeah, this person's on the same starting tribe as that person and maybe they'll get along. But we would talk about that next time. And then in the future also we would probably be doing a boot list video, thinking, okay, are these people going to be pre-merge, merge, or final six, to see, okay, let's see if we can guess where these people are going to fall. So the first person that we have is Chanel, who is 29. She is originally from Connecticut. She is now in New York, and she is an executive recruiter. And so one of the biggest things that stood out to me with Chanel was that she seems like a really, really big fan of Survivor. And like we just mentioned, it seems like there are a handful of like fans, super fans of this cast. She says that she's a student of the game, watched all seasons, studied the greats. And then in the video interview, she was just listing all of the research that she's done, and she's played online Survivor games. So I feel like for every single superfan that we'll be talking about on this list, it's really who can balance being such a big fan of the show, but also being chill about it and not being like a super big threat about it. Because we do see like super fans, they're able to go under the radar. But on the other hand, you see super fans go out there and then crash and burn so quickly.
Yeah, and I feel like she is going to be someone who maybe has the social skills to fly under the radar, just because her working, she's an executive recruiter. And so basically, like, part of her job is to like talk to people and like be like warm and charismatic around people so that they will like want to do what she wants them to do. So I feel like she has the people skills to back up like her Survivor super fandom. And I feel like also just she's a New Yorker. And so I feel like that also kind of big city girl, it all comes together, I feel like. So I feel like she has a better chance than someone who's like maybe more of an obvious super fan as well. So
I agree. There's also a few people from New York, either like right now or they were born there. So that could be something that they all connect over, like East Coast or being from New York, if they're from the city or not. One of like little like questionable things from her Q&A, she describes herself as cunning, competitive, and cultured. I feel like saying you describing yourself as cunning and competitive, it might come across poorly or like threatening if that is how you're acting on the island, versus other people on the cast, their three words to describe themselves would be like fun or caring or like spontaneous. I definitely think the like connotations behind describing yourself as cunning and competitive are very, very different than describing yourself as fun or caring. But also, you know, I think she won't necessarily come off like super threatening on the island, even though she described herself this way. But it does seem like she can play down her assets and her strengths from those video interviews and the way that she was talking, versus like going in there gung ho, like I'm going to cut everyone's throats and be the best Survivor player ever, which we saw in some other people's videos.
definitely.
But with Chanel, she said in the video that she has a certificate in negotiation mastery, which I thought was funny. It reminded me of Angelina. So maybe Chanel will be doing some negotiating with Jeff. Her videos, I think she seemed fun, confident, a good talker, able to negotiate to get what she wants. And I feel like she won't come off too cunning like how she self described herself. But I do think she'd be one of those super fans that would be able to be more chill versus the super fans that will go out early because they are not chill.
Yeah.
So the second person that we have is Daniel, who is 30. He's originally from Ohio, now Connecticut, and he is a law clerk. Alyssa, your thoughts on Daniel?
I thought it was funny because he one of the words that he used to describe himself is ebullient, and I had to Google that because like I have a college level vocabulary, but I have never heard that word before. So if you're like me and don't know what ebullient means, it means cheerful and full of energy. So good for him. I think he seems like kind of interesting, I guess, in the sense that like he's a law clerk, but he his like hobby is collecting pocket constitutions, and I have never heard anything that is more like law clerk than having a collection of signed U.S. constitutions. So, yeah, I feel like he's kind of quirky, kind of cool. It seems fun. He seems like a good guy, but I also am not sure how far he'll get just because I don't know if he has like the cutthroatness to play this game well.
The
So,
Constitution thing reminds me of, like, Haley, how she really loved law and stuff like that too. I agree. I think, like, big nerd is what I wrote down, like, saying George Washington is his hero. Apparently, he was going to be on Millennials versus Gen X in, like, Adam's spot as, like, the alternate, so I was like, "Oh, Daniel, Adam," I could definitely see how they're, like, a similar kind of character or archetype. Daniel also is a cancer survivor, and in the videos, he was joking about, I have a sob story, but it's not just a regular sob story. It's a sob story related to Survivor because Survivor watching the show helped him get through cancer. So I felt like he had a very, very interesting, like, self awareness. And he straight up says, I think the odds are against me. Like, it's a matter of threat management for him. So I do wonder, like, he also seems like a big, big fan of the show, but he's already saying, like, yeah, I'm not going to win this game.
yeah, I think it's also kind of weird because, like, I personally don't see him as a huge threat, and I wonder if that's just because, like, they played up his nerdiness in, like, other aspects rather than, like, him being, like, a really big Survivor superfan. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting and like that self-awareness that he seems to have by calling himself like not the winner and trying to manage his threat level because I mean, just visually if people are looking at him, they might just like say, "Oh, he looks sort of nerdy, like he's going to be very intelligent." And that has happened to players in the past. So like for Jason Linden from Island of the Idols, he said he was nicknamed like Steven Fishback at the start of their season, and it was really hard to get rid of that nickname or preconceived notion because everyone was just calling him Fishback all the time because like they're both tall and skinny. So if Daniel falls into that trap of like being called an Adam or a Stephen Fishback, like a survivor, famous, smart person, that definitely won't be good because even if Daniel won't play like Adam or Steven, just having that preconceived notion that you're intelligent, you can win the game, you can be second place in the game like those two is not going to be a good sign. So you don't want to be called any survivor names like that.
Yeah, I feel like the problem with having so many survivor archetypes now is that it's really hard because I feel like basically someone of every archetype has won, and it's just how threatening do people see you and how threatening do they see your archetype? So,
And I feel like the Adam Klein, Stephen Fishback archetype can be very threatening, even if you aren't them. But the video, he said that he's going to be pretty honest about his background as a law clerk and his cancer story. So I thought that was interesting because a lot of times we do see people who have like interesting backgrounds or like surviving cancer. They don't necessarily share that with their peers on the island for fear of like being judged or being voted out because they don't want someone like that in the final tribal. So I thought it was interesting that he was going to be sharing those pieces about himself with others.
yeah, and I think that one of the reasons he might choose to do that is because it's a lot less threatening if you open up about it from the get go, as opposed to like maybe hiding it and then the information coming out. So it's like if you're honest, people can't use it against you as much.
Yeah, especially for like major life events like that, I feel like it would be sort of hard to hide something, especially if maybe you had to like leave work or something and you like had to do all of these other treatments that you had to put a pause on your life. It would sort of be hard to like, oh, just have missing a few years of your life and just like skip over that, especially because like he's only 30, he's sort of young, so it's not like you have a lot of other things that you might be able to be talking about. But Next, we have Drea, who is 35, originally from Texas, now in Canada, and she is a fitness consultant. One of the things from her questions that stood out to me was that her pet peeve was dishonest people. So I thought that was sort of funny because, like, Survivor is all about lying and cheating and scheming. And even though you can play with integrity, a lot of the game is like, how can you outwit other people? So hopefully, dishonest people for Drea, it's not going to be like an end all be all when she gets into Survivor, because I always feel like the people that are the holier than thou, I'm never going to lie, I'm never going to cheat, never going to steal in the show, are sort of especially because a lot of times they are doing those things, but then are like hypocritical to others who are also doing those things.
Yeah, I think to me, the thing that stood out to me was that she said she has like her own business, fitness business. And she said that she was going to lie about that. And so it's like, you say you don't like dishonest people, but then you're going to be dishonest? Like, come on. But I think it also makes sense that she's not going to tell the truth about her business and instead, like, call herself a fitness trainer, because that definitely carries with it more like meathead kind of connotations. So I think it'll be interesting to see her play the game, like, as, I guess, if we're talking about like the Brains Beauty Brawn tribe, like she's going to be playing the game like she would if she was on the Brawn tribe, and not necessarily if she was on the, I don't know, whatever a fitness consultant would be, you know?
Yeah, I feel like business owner could be brain tribe. Honestly, I feel like Drea could be all three. Like, she's very attractive, she's very smart, has her own business, and also is very fit with that whole like fitness consultant thing. So Drea could be a triple threat depending how she is able to like interact with other people and get along with other people. She's also very athletic. She said she was an all-American track runner, so she has to be like very good at that sport, as well as probably things like, you know, endurance running, maybe holding heavy things for these Survivor challenges. So I could see her background in athletics from school, as well as her love for fitness as a fitness consultant, could translate really well to like being good at challenges. And she said in the video that she's been in Survivor boot camp her entire life, just building to this moment. So I sort of want to know what that means, because she just said it as like a statement. Oh, I've been in Survivor boot camp, but like, what does that mean?
If I had to guess, I would say that she means that like she's had kind of a difficult life because like her dad died when she was young and like she had to work really hard for everything that she has. But maybe she means something else entirely. Maybe she's been practicing Survivor challenges in her spare time.
Yeah, making fire like someone else in the video who just talked about fire for so long.
Yeah.
But next up, we have Hai, who is 29, originally from Georgia and Vietnam, and now is residing in New Orleans, and he is a data scientist.
I feel like we say this every time there's like a computer guy, but like computer guys, they really are something. I feel like data science is a really interesting field. I think I'm pretty sure he said he's not going to be truthful about the fact that he immigrated from Vietnam with his parents. So I think that'll be interesting because it's like, I feel like that definitely shapes your entire life. Like if you immigrate at a young age, especially because he grew up fairly poor because of it. So I'm interested to see what his lie is going to be about his personal life.
When you say data scientist, oof, do you mean oof good or oof bad?
I just mean oof in the sense that, like, I feel like a lot of the stereotype for like nerdy guys is that they lack a lot of social awareness. So I guess kind of bad oof, but also they can be really smart. Like I think of like um Xander did really well, even though he didn't win. And I guess he wasn't that smart, but bad example. Like Yule, he's like insanely smart and did really well in the game, but that's because he had like the social skills and the super idol to back him up.
Yeah, I'd say Xander's intelligent, the app developer student thing. Um, but with Hai, he says he is a super fan, watching since he was 8 years old. He has such an interesting story like you were talking about. He's very, very accomplished now. In the Q&A, he said that he bought his first home at 24, he paid off his student loans by 26, and now he's the youngest associate director at his company by 27. And I was like, dang, teach us some tricks. That is so cool and so inspiring how he's been able to accomplish so much, and he's only 29. So I feel like he probably has a really, really good work ethic, because you don't just become the youngest associate director at your company for like being a bum or being not good at your job. So I feel like he's probably very, very intelligent and is able to work well with others to be promoted like that, and is able to produce his work well to like be promoted, honestly. And I was also interested, like you mentioned, how he wasn't going to share his background with others off the bat, but he said if it does come up like naturally, he would mention things. And I wrote down, like, I thought that he would be able to relate with others with similar backgrounds and family backgrounds, as he described in the questions, like a low income background, immigrant refugee background, because there are a few others on this cast who come from similar backgrounds of like immigrating to the United States or Canada, as well as growing up in poverty or a low income household. So I felt like not sharing those things, like you were saying, I don't know. I'm interested to see how that works, because like you were saying, it's such a big part of your life to just erase it. I just think if you were to share little tidbits of your background, you would be able to relate with others on your tribe who maybe grew up similarly.
I also wonder, what does it look like for like immigrating to the United States coming up like in casual conversation? Like, I don't think that anyone's going to be like, so were you born in the United States? Just because that would be hella racist. So, yeah.
Oh, do you watch Love is Blind, Alyssa?
I do not.
Oh my God. In the like second set that dropped, they do like family visits. And one of the family members was like, do you like riding dirt bikes and being American, like doing American things? So what you just said reminded me of that.
That's, well, we don't have time to unpack all that.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like it could come up like, oh, where were you born kind of thing. And then, it might be brought up like, oh, I wasn't born in the United States, because there's also people that were also not born in the United States. So that could bring up like, oh, yeah, I moved when I was young. Like my family is from another country. And that could be a good segue, not like, where are you from kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, I still feel like where were you born could have some potentially um, connotations depending on how it was asked. But yeah,
Yeah. So I think Hai seems fun and cool. Like I would want to be friends with Hai in real life. Like he just seems really chill, upbeat personality, and I hope he does well. He just seems so cool.
he does seem cool. I hope he does well as well.
So next up we have Jackson, who is 48, from Texas, still in Texas, and he is a healthcare worker. So I guess Alyssa, what are your thoughts initially on Jackson?
I feel like we didn't get as much from him as we did from like other people, which I thought was interesting, especially given like he was a healthcare worker in the middle of a pandemic. So, yeah.
Jackson, also a big fan. He says he has maybe been applying for 10 years, but he said, "Oh, this moment being on Survivor has been 10 years in the making." He started and runs his own company, which I thought was really interesting. I would want to know more about that, but the questions didn't really go into that. He seems like such a big sweetheart, also animal lover. He collects hurt or abandoned animals. So I'm like, "Oh, that's so cute."
Yeah, it just seems like he also put as one of his like three words to describe you as dog walker. And I just thought that was cute because it's like of all the words in the world, the thing that you think describes you best is the fact that you walk dogs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole animal thing, it reminded me, my dad has like a coworker who retired and then moved to South America and just like has a big farm where he just collects like similarly hurt or abandoned, like abused animals on the farm. So I was like, dang, you have like you're just such a good person, helping those kinds of animals because it's just so sad. Animals can't defend themselves and then like people do bad things to them. So Jackson, healthcare worker, has a good heart, working in healthcare during COVID as well as loving animals. He says the player that he's most like would be Elaine. And I was like, okay, I could definitely see him being an Elaine on the island. Like he's very goofy and friendly. And I could see him as like an Elaine archetype even.
Yeah, again, I always say this when we do these cast assessments. I always wonder what people are thinking when they say that they're going to play most like a player that didn't win. Because it's like, Elaine didn't win. Why are you wanting to play like her? But I think it's interesting also because the whole like animal lover thing could get him in trouble. Like, I think of all the arguments that people have about killing and eating chickens. So
Ooh, I wonder if he like likes all the animals or just the like domesticated dogs, cat animals.
that will be a question we have to answer, I guess.
So yeah, he says that coming out and being a transgender man has helped him prepare for Survivor. And so that is very, very cool. I do wonder, like, will he share that information about himself or not on the island? Didn't mention it in any of the interviews or questionnaires. I felt like he could connect with Mariah on the cast, whose late brother was a nurse during the pandemic. So I felt like maybe that could be a connection. But Jackson seems so likable and friendly, like a cool guy.
I will say that Jackson might not have to say anything about being trans just because, like, if he's ever shirtless on the island, people might see, like, the top surgery scars that he has if he got top surgery. Because I know that Zeke, when he was on the island, said that, like, he never really came out as trans, but, like, the people who were savvy to the trans community kind of, like, knew because of his top surgery scars. So that's a point to be made.
Definitely. And also some trans representation. I feel like we have a lot of LGBTQ plus representation on this season, which is really cool because a lot of times it is like, the token gay person on the island. So it is really cool to see more different queer representation on the island.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, we have Jenny, who is 43 from New York, still in New York, and she is a creative director. Some of her pet peeves were arrogant people and those who have a sense of entitlement. So I thought that was interesting because on the island, people might start to get big heads if their plans are going their way and they're like, yeah, I'm the best Survivor player ever, hee hee. And so I wonder if that will like peeve her off on the island. She had an interesting, like, fun fact, what we wouldn't know about you if looking at you answer. She says that she knows how to weld and build furniture out of metal, worked in a metal shop, and is good with her hands. So I thought that was really cool. Could she maybe create furniture things for her tribe out of, like, logs and trees and stuff like that, sort of like Wendell, who made furniture and then was able to create a lot of comfort items for his tribes. I do wonder, maybe Jenny, as having a background in like welding and building things and being good with her hands, could she also be creative and create those items similar to Wendell for her tribe?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they probably don't have a welder on the island. So I think it'll be interesting to see how well those skills translate, like if welding also works for bamboo. But I also thought that was like a fun fact, especially because, I don't know, she doesn't seem to really focus a lot on her work in her um, interview. Like, she mentions that one of the things that she's most proud of is that, like, she continued in her career even when it was hard. But yeah, I thought the one thing that was interesting was she talked a lot about like studying people and studying human behavior. Like, she mentioned it in talking about which Survivor player she's going to be like, and then also like why she's going to be sole Survivor. And I always think it's interesting because the people who generally seem to think that they're the most like emotionally intelligent generally aren't actually. So I'm curious to see if she is as emotionally intelligent as she thinks she is.
Interesting. Yeah, that will be interesting to see. For the players that she said she was most like, she said Kelly Wentworth and Lauren Ashley Beck. There were a few Lauren Ashley Becks on here, so that was fascinating. Like maybe from also Lauren Ashley Beck's TikTok fame as well. So I was like, go girl, getting up there as like the new Parvati of the best the player that they want to emulate their games after. And I thought the video interview was interesting also. She says that she's a listener and people will like give her their secrets and open up to her just when like they meet each other. So I do wonder like if that will translate to the island. Jenny does seem like more of a listener rather than a talker. So maybe from the interview she seems a little bit more quiet. So if she is going to do that on the island and she's able to get people to open up to her and like steal their secrets from them, I think that could play well for her. But if she's going to be maybe more quiet and not talking or creating those bonds with other people quickly, especially on these like 6 people tribes, I feel like that could be a detriment.
Mm-hmm.
But Jenny seems nice, very smiley. She has a great smile. So she seems very, very fun. Next up, we have Jonathan, 29, from Alabama, currently in Alabama, and he is a beach service company owner. First off the bat, I thought he looked like a mix of John Stamos and Blake Moynes from The Bachelorette.
I have no idea who Blake Moynes is, so I cannot comment.
Oh my gosh. I'll send you a picture through text, Alyssa. But your thoughts on Jonathan?
I thought it was funny that like his like proudest accomplishment was having the Guinness World Record for the most chin ups with 100 pounds on his back. So that was interesting. So his record, in case you're curious, is 12. So
12 chin ups?
yeah, but he has 100 pounds on his back, so it's not just.
I was like, I don't know how many. I could probably do like 3. So 12
But
while
like
you're carrying a person sized 100 pounds.
yeah, but so I thought that was interesting. He made a point in his interview that like he didn't want people to know how strong he was, and it's like, buddy, I think they can probably tell.
I wrote that too. He said he wanted to downplay his strength, but then I was like, this dude is the buffest guy out here, or like one of, if not the top 3, like biggest guys on the cast. Like he's got muscles on muscles. Yeah. His hobbies, he said working out, spearfishing, surfing. That proudest accomplishment that you mentioned was interesting. The past Survivor player, he wants to play most like Aussie, which I thought was interesting. He wanted to like provide for his tribe as a spearfisher, and like Ozzy, famously did that as well. So I do wonder because Jonathan, I don't think he can hide how athletic he is. Maybe he can turn up the surfer bro vibes like, oh, I'm not that smart. I'm not a beach company owner. He can just be like, I just surf all the time. And then maybe people would underestimate him as like just this big jock guy who might not be playing the game. But as a provider, maybe his tribe would keep him around, and he's like super strong and big for challenges. Maybe that's why they would keep him around for challenges as well as catching fish for food for the tribe. But also, I don't know. I feel like I'm sort of on him. He definitely stands out as like one of the biggest guys out there, which might not be good for him. Especially, I feel like nowadays people are sort of less about tribe strength and more about like who do we vibe well with. And I'm not sure if I see him vibing with people on this cast as much, but I guess it depends on who he's starting with on the 6-person starting tribe. And I guess we'll talk about that in the next podcast for the tribe reactions. But I don't know. I'm sort of like on him right now.
I feel like it's worth noting that maybe because 42 is like a shortened season and they have more like challenges or whatever, being a provider might be more helpful. Like kind of how we saw like a lot of people didn't necessarily vibe with Nasir, but they kept him because they wanted to keep eating. So I do think that maybe in 42, it's kind of like a return to the old school ways where being a provider is actually a legitimate strategy. Whereas I feel like in kind of like the past 10-ish seasons, being a provider wasn't necessarily as important just because you're getting a lot of food rewards and it's not like super important to have like an extra fish. So
That's true. It depends. even maybe now 40, 41, 42, where everyone is starving, they don't have like any rice, then maybe being a provider would be more important, having that skill of spearfishing. Also, interestingly, in the chat, they're saying Jonathan competed on a teen version of Survivor and got third place with his teammates. So that's interesting.
Yeah, they mentioned that in his like intro blurb for the interview, but it didn't say how well he did. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I've never heard of endurance. So I guess we'll have to check that out as like a teenager doing this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But next up, we have Lindsay, who is 31, originally from New Jersey, still in New Jersey, and she is a dietitian. So, 3 words to describe herself. She said loud, talkative, and intense personality. Then her pet peeve was I have too much pent up energy. I need to do something. I hate slow and quiet talkers. Spit it out and speak up! Exclamation point. So just from those 2 answers alone, I was like, maybe a little bit red flags popping up. It just seems like a lot. And maybe that doesn't translate to the island, but even from the video interviews, she does seem very, very intense. And it does seem like she's going to bring that like loud, talkative personality to the island, which might rub people the wrong way if they're like, stop talking. We need some quiet time. I'm sick of all these people. Like, we need some chill yoga time. You don't want someone talking all the time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of hopeful that this is one of those things where like she says she's going to be one way and then it definitely gets dialed back on the island. Just because I feel like you see a lot of cases where like the kind of like loud gregarious one is the one that people target first just because they're an easy target. So
Yeah, it could go either way. She could go out on the island loud and I feel like could get voted off early because of that, or like you're saying, if she is able to dial that back. But it does seem like this is just such a big part of her personality. If you're hiding such a big part of yourself, it's sort of hard to do that for long periods of time, especially 24 hours, 7 days a week. It might be hard, and then your true colors, true personality might show because of that. She said she started her own business, which is very cool. I feel like we have a lot of like entrepreneurs on this cast, but then in the questionnaire, she had like a weird comment saying, "Oh, I conducted my first real interview and just hired a woman who could be my mom." So I was like, what does that mean? Like because she reminds you of your mom in like personality traits or something, or is like you like just because she's older, like that's why she reminds you of your mom.
yeah, so I guess we'll have to see. This is definitely one of those people where I'm like, are the interviews giving us the full story? So
Yeah, definitely some very questionable answers with everything. She seems very, very competitive. She says she wants to be a top competitor in challenges and that people are stupid. So that could go either way. She could be a challenge asset for her team and then be kept around. Or if she like wants to be the center of attention, then that could be a negative for her. But she's from New Jersey, so similar to Tony, Michelle, Natalie Anderson, New Jersey's got something in the water to make them special. So maybe she has that and she'll go all the way.
we'll have to see.
But that is Lindsay. Going on to another L name, we have Lydia, who is 22 from Virginia, now in California, and she's a waitress, actor, and writer. So, Alyssa, your thoughts on Lydia?
I thought it was funny. Like, she was in one of the videos, she was talking about being an actress. And while she was talking about being an actress, they had her little, like, career subtitle as waitress. And I was like, I'm not sure if that's meant to be funny, but it's really funny.
A lady of many jobs, which she also says the survivor she wants to play most like Tom Westman, Suri, and maybe a little bit crazy like Debbie, question mark. Time will only tell. So Lydia seems like a very quirky, fun young person, seems very upbeat from the survivor video interviews that she was doing. Like she seems very quirky.
Yeah, but like a good kind of quirky, I hope. So I definitely think she isn't giving me crazy like Debbie vibes, but
Yeah, more like fun. fun, quirky, like the life of the party. I feel like Lydia could give that kind of vibes. She says she's terrified of vacuum cleaners, which was weird. And I was like, that's relatable. My cat is also terrified of vacuum cleaners.
She also said she was terrified of Ferris wheels, and one of her greatest life accomplishments was going on the Ferris wheel in Disneyland. So definitely some quirks.
Yeah, which I definitely feel like in these questionnaires and video interviews, like you can play up like weird things about yourselves, like, oh, embarrassing moment, you just say something really, really odd, like, oh, pet peeve or weird facts about me, you say the most out of left ball field thing that you can think of. So maybe she's just saying this for the interviews and she is like not that like in your face of quirkiness on the island like sort of a Debbie would be. So I think she can do well because of that. And she says she wants to be a fun younger sister, which it might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing, falling into that like younger person, young kid role. Like, oh, older brother, older sister, you're going to protect me kind of role. Might not be a good thing if people don't respect her because she's one of the younger people on this tribe.
Yeah, but I also feel like when there are younger people, it's not necessarily a matter of respect. So, like, I feel like Xander, part of the reason people lost respect for him wasn't because of like his age, it was because of the way he was playing the game. So I think if you're like a solid game player, people will still respect you, even if you are younger. So
Yeah, I definitely think how it's about how you come across. Like if you come across as a young person who maybe like doesn't have that life experience that other people are turned off by, like, oh, they were given everything in their life. Not saying like just in general, not about Lydia, but like just in general, if someone comes off like, oh, millennial, Gen Z, my parents are super rich, I've never had to work a day in my life kind of thing, that might rub a lot of the older people the wrong way. And then like, why would you ever give $1 million to someone like that? But I feel like Lydia could definitely fall into a role where she is able to get respect, but maybe people won't give her $1 million because she is younger.
yeah, so I can't remember if she said that she was going to lie about her age. I know one of the other younger contestants had a plan to lie about her age already. So,
Yeah, I didn't see that for Lydia, but 22, I feel like maybe she could pass 24, but you can't lie too much up. I feel like she definitely looks like our age, young.
yeah.
So next up, we have Mariah, who is 47 from Michigan, now in Indiana, and she is a stay-at-home mom. So your thoughts on Mariah?
Her hometown is the town in Michigan where my dad grew up. So,
Do
I'm
they know each
legally,
other?
I don't think so, but I'm legally obligated to like her because of that. So,
I think it's interesting. It's sort of like the mom archetype of the cast, maybe like a Tiffany or a Heather. She's the oldest woman on the cast at 47, which like isn't even that old, but she's the oldest woman on the cast. She seems very quirky, but also friendly and welcoming. She said that her pet peeve was big old snuffleupagus sneezes and people that don't cover up their nose. And so I looked up what the snuffleupagus was.
you
It's
don't
a
know what
really cute.
snuffleupagus is?
I feel like I've heard that word, but it's more of a like a made up word, not like a character dude.
Rachel.
It's a cute elephant.
Yeah, I think he's a Muppet. So,
Um,
but I also thought she had kind of another sad story because her brother Caius was the first nurse in New York to die of COVID-19, and so I feel like that's like very tragic, but very also I feel like in line with the way the world like is now. Like I feel like a lot of people have really sad COVID stories and could maybe like bond over that, but it was kind
that's
of
true.
sad.
Especially other people like working in the healthcare field, like Jackson. We thought that they might have a connection there. And just a lot, I think we talked about it with the 41 cast. A lot of people have maybe been affected by COVID, a family member or an extended family member or friend who may have passed away from COVID. So if she does talk about her brother and maybe she's playing for her brother or things like that, then maybe other people would be able to like relate or sympathize with her for talking about things like that on the island. But also on the other hand, she might not bring it up because it probably is like a big topic, and it happened so recently too that like, it's hard for people to talk about stuff like that. So maybe she won't bring it up. She mentioned some things in her Q&A that would make her good at Survivor, but doesn't give too much information. She says she has teaching awards, always in front of people taking leadership roles, and has emotional intelligence. So I think she was a teacher before she had children. So I think being a teacher, very similar to, was it Heather who was a teacher or Tiffany? One of them was a teacher also. So I feel like being a teacher, depending on what age that she taught, maybe young from the snuffleupagus sneezing, could do well with like people on Survivor.
Yeah. I feel like also her whole thing about pet peeve with people not covering their noses, I feel like she has to be teaching younger kids because
It was like elementary school, but
little kids are so bad at covering their sneezes and their coughs. Like you tell them, like, remember we need to cover our mouths when we sneeze, and then they will literally look you in the eye and sneeze again without covering their mouth. And it's like, child, I just told you. But I obviously don't have any opinions on this whatsoever.
it could be an older person too, Alyssa. I'm not sure, but for like in college, going to the libraries or even in the dorms, there would be people that wouldn't even flush the toilets. And it's like, you're 18 to 22.
What
Why
are
are you
you
not
doing?
flushing the toilets? Did
Yeah.
that like, it's just so gross. So maybe snuffleupagus sneezes for older students too. So grody. But
Yeah.
I feel like Mariah could fly under the radar and sort of be not threatening. In her video, she says that she thinks that she's going to be pushed into the mom position because she's the oldest person on the tribe and in the game here. And she's already looking out for the young people that are her son's age. And she realizes that this isn't good for her game. So I thought that it was very fascinating to have that self-awareness to realize this before the game even starts, that you're going to be pushed into this archetype, and she's already feeling care for the younger people, and so she needs to like tone that down.
Yeah, I feel like one of the greatest gifts in Survivor is self-awareness, and it's like self-awareness is the first step towards fixing your problems. And I'm not sure honestly that like being a part of a certain archetype is something that you can fix. Like she's never not going to be like perceived as the mom, so just having an awareness of that perception is important.
Yeah, just like Jonathan will never be able to hide how buff he is.
Exactly.
So next up, we have Mary Ann, who is 24, from Canada, still in Canada, and she is a seminary student. And so, being a seminary student, I would think that she's probably religious because she is going into that trade and field, which there's another, I guess, a few other religious people on the cast that did mention religion in their questions, but a lot of the people did not mention any kind of religion or affiliation or beliefs or anything. So I do wonder if being religious would be like a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how much you are bringing up religion in like your conversations with other people.
I always wonder how much religion is brought up on the island, just because I feel like there's a lot of seasons where we've seen like very deeply religious people, and like we don't always like see them talk about it on the island. Like the only time I can remember it being like a super big thing was in like Survivor China, when they were like convinced that like the limes were a gift from God or whatever. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Am I making this up?
Maybe. I don't necessarily remember, but I'll take your word for it.
I mean, I could also just be pulling this out of my butt, but
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. She like I guess didn't mention religion in any of her answers besides being a seminary student, versus like another person who we'll get to shortly talked about religion in multiple of their questionnaire answers. So Marianne, she seems fun. she's like so cute and like young at 24. But honestly, I feel like she's got such a young vibrance around her. Like she could pass as like the 19-year-old on the cast.
I thought it was funny also. She said that like one of the words she would use to describe her is chaotic. And just I love that energy.
Yeah, she seems like a big fan of the show also. She says in the video interview that she ran numbers on past seasons to like statistically figure out how to win the game and like things like that. So she does seem like a big fan. She said that her hero was her mother because her mother was born into poverty in Kenya and then became a doctor in Kenya and then left everything to come to Canada and is now a doctor in Canada as well. So I feel like her mom is just really, really inspiring. Like, very similar. I feel like we were talking about people from like backgrounds like that or who maybe immigrated to the United States or grew up in poverty or low income backgrounds. Marianne didn't mention whether she would be bringing up this history into the show. So, like, dislike unsimilar to Hai, who said he wasn't going to talk about that background. Marianne, we don't know whether she will bring it up or not bring it up.
Yeah.
But the player she says she wants to be like is Davy. I could totally see this. They both seem so fun and goofy. I thought that was like a spot on player comparison. But Alyssa, you might have problems because Davy didn't win. But I think in this answer, she said, like, Davy had those skills and I'll perfect them to get the win. So it's a good answer because she says she'll win by playing like this other player, but she'll get the W at the end.
Yeah. I always just think it's like when they say like, "Oh, this person played a great game," and they like never add any like additional bits to it, that's when I have a problem. So,
Yeah, so she qualified her answer there. I think Marianne can go far. She seems really fun, relatable, quirky. I guess it depends on her starting tribe, which we haven't looked at yet, but I think she seems to have the aspects that would make a good survivor player. I guess the physical aspects we don't really know, but if she can hold her own in challenges, then she seems fun to get along with people.
yeah, she does seem fun. So,
Next up, we have Mike, who is 58 from New Jersey, still in New Jersey. So he has that New Jersey special sauce, like we were just talking about. And he is a retired firefighter. So, what are your thoughts on Mike?
I really like him, which I didn't really expect to just because he seems like kind of rough around the edges, could be kind of grating, but I really liked like his storytelling skills. I think that he seems like a good guy because he told his most embarrassing moment like was when he was a firefighter and he like asked a lady if she was pregnant and she wasn't pregnant, and he finishes the story by being like, "I'm still convinced I was right," and the lady is telling the story to her kid just to like take the shit out of me. So I feel like just the way he told the story, his absolute confidence in the fact that he was correct, it just seemed like it was a fun story. He seems like a fun guy. So
I agree. He seems like a really cool guy. He seems very athletic from like the photos that we see. And to be a firefighter, you have to be so freaking strong and athletic. Like the training and like the tests and physical tests that you have to go through to even be a firefighter are like so freaking hardcore. So I imagine, even though he's retired now, that he has a lot of those like skills from the training days and being a firefighter and like being physically fit to be a firefighter come into his life now. So I'm like, dang, this dude, very fit, very strong. I think he can do well. He's the oldest person on the cast, which would make him also the oldest man on the cast as well. And he also says that he comes from not a very good home life. So if he does bring up his background, that could relate to other people from similar backgrounds. But he didn't mention whether he would be talking about his home life or not.
yeah, so I like him. I feel like he is a good prospect, probably not like a winner prospect, but still fun.
Questions there. I agree. He says the player most like would be Boston Rob. So I would bring up the question like, how much does he know about Survivor? It could be sort of like a Brad from last season, where you're fun, you're good TV, but like how much do you really know about Survivor? Can't tell if Mike is like a super big fan, or maybe he's just watched a few seasons and then applied. So would want to know more about that, but non-Survivor fans can get far as well. So if he's got the people skills and the New Jersey sauce, he's just gonna win. The New
I feel
Jerseyans
like
always win.
it's worth noting that I think that Lauren Ashley Beck was mentioned more times than Boston Rob on this survey. So that's a fun and special factoid.
Yeah. See, Lauren Ashley Beck coming in. The new Parvati, the new Boston Rob. I feel like Kim was mentioned a lot in these questionnaires, but yeah,
Kim
people are
should
sort of
have been mentioned a lot more in past questionnaires, is my thing.
recency bias here, yeah. I think Mike, he says in the video that he wants to hide that he's overly emotional, like stories would tug on his heartstrings. Seems like he's sort of a big teddy bear, like a crier. So that could get along well with other people, especially if he maybe is threatening because he's super athletic. Having that emotional side and like empathy would be able to like get people to like you on the island.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, we have Omar, who is 31 from Canada, still in Canada, and he is a vet, but he is an exotic animal vet.
I was gonna say, like, they totally buried the lead with that one because they like have
Seriously.
him subtitled as a veterinarian, and it like wasn't until I reread his interview that I was like, wait, he's an exotic animal veterinarian. What the heck? How do I get that job? I also think it's funny because in his like little interview blurb, they say Survivor has been compared to a monster, a feral creature, and it's like the only one who ever compared Survivor to a monster was Jeff, and we're still kind of confused about that. So
I do wonder for the exotic animal veterinarian, like if he tells people that he is an exotic animal vet versus like a domesticated animal vet, how that might come across, because I'm not sure, but at least like exotic animals might have a negative connotation because people might think, oh, Tiger King. So it really depends on like what he actually does as an exotic animal vet. I assume like, oh, he's a vet for like tigers, right? Is that what it means?
yeah, exotic animal vet is like a very broad category because like some people consider like any animal that's not like dog, cat, like guinea pig, hamster, like those kinds of animals exotic. So it depends.
Yeah, another animal lover though. You gotta love animals to go into that field. And I do wonder, will Jackson and Omar have some beef about their love for animals? Like Omar doing the big animal veterinarianisms, but Jackson is saving the like dogs from the street. I wonder if people have like, oh, sort of about exotic animals like in zoos and stuff like that, which might not be a good thing.
I also thought it was funny. He lists a bunch of stuff in his pet peeves, and he's like, people complain about the cost of vet care, feeding seeds to parrots, mini wheats having gelatin, and then he's like institutional racism, where it's like he has all these minor pet peeves, and then it's just institutional racism at the end. So I
Which
thought that
I
was
thought his answers were so like quirky and weird almost, and maybe like we
the
were
thing is,
saying
I
for
feel like
someone.
they're very like good pet peeves because they're not like everyone's pet peeves, but they're still like understandable pet peeves, you know?
Yeah, I agree. They're like unique, but like how we were talking about Lydia and like, oh, she comes off very quirky, but on the island, she won't be like Debbie quirkiness. I feel like Omar, from his answers, might be like Debbie quirkiness on the island. It just sort of, I guess for me, weird how, like you were saying, the pet peeves, he was saying like regular things and then just put in like institutional racism at the end of there. And then like he was saying, oh, he had a difficult childhood as well. And then at the end of that question, he said, I'm afraid of condiments. So maybe it's just like his personality, but I feel like that could be jarring if he's talking about this in the game where he's talking about like a fun topic and then switches straight into like a serious topic, like offhand. But maybe that just could be his answers. And he was trying to be funny in the answers by like saying quirky things at the end of the answers. But I don't know if that's like the personality that he's bringing into the show, then it could be jarring for people going from like serious to fun to serious, like on the flip of a switch like that.
I do have to say, I also have a pet peeve with one of his answers because he mentioned Darwin's theory of evolution. And it's like Darwin's theory of evolution doesn't apply to individual organisms, it applies to populations over time. So the whole thing about like Darwin says we have to adapt or die, it's like, no, that's not how that works. It's not an individual adapting, it's that your kids will be better than you were. And so it doesn't apply to Survivor.
So you're going to have a beef with Omar for that answer. Jackson might have a beef with Omar for the animals.
Everyone has beef with Omar, which is better
Yeah.
than having pork with Omar because Omar doesn't eat pork.
Oh my gosh. Omar says he's also the biggest fan here. So it definitely seems like a big super fan. Another pet peeve with his answer, I think, Alyssa, we've talked about this before. He says the player that he's most like and then listed a bunch of them. He says Rob Cesternino, Sari, Tyson Kim, Natalie Anderson. For this answer, you can't pick, 5 of the greatest people on Survivor of all time. Like, that's not how you answer this
Especially
question.
because they all like played such different games too. Like, come on.
Choose one or two. So for me, Omar, I don't know. I'm a little bit like right now. I definitely could see him playing too hard too fast as a super fan and then get voted out early because of it. Sort of like a Jacob Derwin. I could definitely see him falling into that trap because he seems so go, go, go. I think similar to the other super fans like Chanel, we were saying, I think Chanel can be chill about it and lay back. Omar definitely seems like the person from day one saying, like, I need to be the leader of this tribe. This is how we build a shelter, kind of thing. This is yada yada. This is how we do things, which might piss off some people on the team.
Yeah, so I guess again, it all comes down to how their interview actually plays out. So
Yeah, he seems fun. If the interview, like the questionnaire, doesn't translate to the island, that might be better if he's like too drawing for people. But the video interview, he had the fun story of the embarrassing moment, like sticking his arm into the wrong hole of a cow.
yeah,
So I
that
was
was
like,
fun.
if he has fun stories, like that might get people to like him on the show.
Yeah.
So next up, we have Rox Roy, who is 44 from New York, now is in Las Vegas, and he is a stay-at-home dad. So Alyssa, initial thoughts of Rox Roy?
He just seems like a solid dude. I love his name. I feel like he's another one of the people where like he had a harder upbringing and it seems like a lot of his motivation in Survivor is winning and getting the money for winning because it's like that's a lot of money that could like change your life. And I wonder if he might end up being one of the people who's like I'd rather get in third place and be a goat than to like flame out really early on just because you do get better placement money if you get to the final 3 regardless of how well you place. So,
Oh, don't bring that into existence. But yeah, we don't know how big of a fan of the show he is. Didn't really mention it in the interviews or anything. So I guess that could be a possibility if he just would like rather take the third place money over like a seventh place money, but like you were trying to make a move and get something to happen. He seems like he might have road rage. Like in 2 of the questions, he says he stays calm except when driving, and then his pet peeve is when drivers who don't use their turn signal. So at least there won't be any driving on the show because he might get mad at you.
yeah. But I do think one more note on the money thing is that could be true of anyone, but like since he specifically said that the money was one of his big motivators, that's why I mention it. So,
Mm. Yeah. Like you mentioned with his background, also, he said he's the first in an immigrant family to graduate from a 4-year college. He says, or I think, like similar, like we were saying before, he can relate to others with similar backgrounds, but also in the interviews, similar to Hai, he said that he doesn't really want to talk too much about his background and he doesn't want to share this personal information with people because he said that it can get tricky when people know too much about you and like might use that against you as strategy. So that was interesting, shows that he's thinking about the game in a strategical way. The Survivor player he's most like, he said Cochran, which I was like, huh, I don't really see this connection, but
that's not who I would have picked for him.
I want to see this connection. If he thinks that he would play like Cochran, I'm like, okay, Let us see this on the island. That is so interesting.
Yeah, I think him becoming a Cochrane would be like the Survivor like moment of the century. Just I would love to see that.
I was like, yeah, what part of Cochrane though? Because like in the interview question, he said like Cochrane made his game better the second time and he was able to get rid of all the hiccups from the first time. So it's like Cochrane 1.0 or Cochrane 2.0, maybe 2.0 that he wants to be like.
Yeah, but I think he's one of the people I want to watch just because I feel like I didn't get as good of a read from him by his interview. So,
Yeah, he's got a fun laugh. He
yeah.
laughed at the end of it and it was like very unique. I think he definitely has a very calming presence in the interviews, so that could be good as like the rock of the tribe. And we don't really see a lot of stay-at-home dads, so I think that would bring a interesting like viewpoint into the game of Survivor.
There's a stay-at-home mom also, so I feel like that would be like a fun conversation for them to have just because I feel like with a lot of gender roles or whatever, like stay-at-home moms are celebrated, but a lot of stay-at-home dads, people are like, "Why are you staying at home?" So,
Yeah, so I wonder if he'll bring that up on the island because there definitely is a lot of like negative stereotypes around stay-at-home dads and like his wife being the, quote, breadwinner of the family. But he's got a cute family. In the Instagram video, like they showed a picture of them. I'm like, aw, so cute.
yeah.
So next up, we have Romeo, who is 37 from LA. He's currently still in California and he is a pageant coach. For me, I thought this questionnaire came off with a lot of red flags. He says, what the question about what you wouldn't know just by looking at him. He says he hates losing or being wrong. I always want to have the right answer and win everything I do, which I thought was a red flag. Past Survivor, he like lists every Survivor player ever again, saying like he wants to achieve great Survivor historical moments like Sandra, Sari, Parvati, Rupert, Rob, and he wants to be remembered, which I thought was also a big red flag.
Yeah, I feel like for me also, he's a pageant coach, which is an interesting career. So, I'm not sure how that equips you for Survivor.
Yeah, maybe negative stereotypes around like the exotic animal stuff we were talking about. Maybe negative stereotypes could come in for like pageantry. Another one of the women on the cast did pageants, and in the video, she said they're called like competitions now and not pageants. But I do wonder, like, the kind of pageant coaching that he's a part of, like, does it have those things like, you know, not eating or like making girls do certain things to like weigh a certain amount or like dress a certain way. I think there could be a lot of like negative connotations or negative stereotypes that people might think of when they hear pageant coaching. So I hope he's able to like talk about it and like shed some light if there's not those like negative things in the pageant coaching that he does.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's such like a hot button issue that wasn't really mentioned whatsoever. So,
Yeah. So red flags with the questionnaire answers for why do you want to be sole survivor? He says, I always find a way to get what I want. And I think when his answers, he's saying, like, I want to be remembered, I want to be like an all-time great. I feel like for people like that on the TV show, like he's a big fan. He says he's watching Survivor as a hobby. He wants to be remembered. I feel like people like that might go into the show trying to do too much and trying to get screen time. So like maybe doing things that aren't good for their game or like purposefully like doing wacky things to try to get screen time and be a screen time hog, that it comes off bad. And I think like people that are so into Survivor that they realize, oh, the fan base might like this, the fan base might not like that, the people on Reddit might like this over that. I feel like for him or someone like that, they might pander to the viewers and try to do or say certain things that will get them more likes or followers online. And so I feel like going into the show as your goal of wanting to be a great and wanting to be remembered might not be too good. Like you want it to happen naturally, but as if your whole goal is to have a historical moment, like I feel like it might be too much of trying to do something just for the viewers.
Yeah, you have to play for the game, not for like the television of it all.
So I don't know about Romeo. He seems like a big fan, but I really hope he's not just going to do stuff just for screen time and followers and like Survivor fame and to get into the Survivor lore of best players ever.
Yeah. But again, we'll have to see.
Yeah. So next up, we have Swati, who is 19 from California, in California. And then her occupation said Ivy League student, which similar to Xander last season, where he was a student, but also his thing said app developer. I'm going to pick a bone here. Why is it got to say, why not just student?
I also feel like, didn't they say that she's a part of the military because she had just finished her like initial training for like the National Guard or something? Like that's also an occupation.
Yeah, I think like it's like an ROTC thing, like how you have those pathways at school cuz she's 19, so she's still in school, but she's in like the Army National Guard program.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But I thought the Army National Guard, it could be a good experience that relates well to Survivor. She said she will tell people that she's in the military kind of thing, and I think the training for that's probably hardcore, so she's probably sort of fit in that regard.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because sometimes I hear people say that ROTC training isn't actually as hard as we think, but sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, I got fit for ROTC." So,
Yeah, your thoughts on Swati?
I think lying about her age is probably a good thing. I think she's gonna have to be careful navigating the whole like military thing, student thing. She said that she's gonna pretend she's from Berkeley. Rachel, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I think it's, I guess, good-ish because she's from Palo Alto, so you would either pick like Berkeley or Stanford. But even, it's still threatening, I guess. I don't know.
I was gonna say it's not like Berkeley is a slouch school.
Yeah, I was offended. That was my answer to that. But yeah, from like Harvard and then like, I don't know about that. But lying about her age, she's only going to say 20 from 19, which isn't too big of a lie. But from teenager to 20, I guess there is some kind of like psychological difference there. But I feel like Swati could even say 22, 23.
I think that part of it is she doesn't want to cross the 21 limit because it'll be obvious when she's not drinking any alcohol that she lied about her age. But also, like Omar said that he doesn't drink alcohol, so she could just be like, "Oh yeah, I don't drink alcohol for religious reasons or whatever." But I think that was my initial thought of why she would only up her age by 1 year because after that she would cross the legal drinking age line.
That's true. Even like for like if you're not saying oh cultural or religious purposes, you could say if there's like alcohol at a challenge or reward, you just be like, we're not eating at all. I'm not going to drink alcohol and become like shoisted on the TV show because like you're not eating. Like one drink would literally like make you tipsy kind of thing. So I think like that would be an easy thing, or like just say like I don't like alcohol. Like I don't drink, I don't go to bars could be an easy excuse not to drink on the show as well. Um, for Swati, she says players that she wants to be like Victoria and Chaos Cass. I thought that was interesting. Those two people don't really get chosen that much. But I think definitely as like a negative for Swati would be her age. She's very young and very college oriented at just 19. So she's like, what, a freshman or sophomore in college, doesn't really have a ton of life experience there. And last year with the cast, when they were 20-year-olds, we were saying, like, a little bit iffy about them. And in her question, she talked a lot about college things, high school things, which definitely, like, you should be proud about. Like, she seems very, very accomplished to get into all the colleges that she did get accepted into. But how relatable is it to be talking about recommendation letters, winning elections, stuff like that with this older cast? I just am not sure how relatable that would be.
Yeah, it's hard because when you're that young, it's like you don't really have a lot of other life experience to like talk about. So unless she's really gonna play up the military thing, I feel like she really only has high school and college to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess similar to Zach, who we'll get to shortly, like it's very sort of, college oriented, high school oriented. So maybe she has other experiences that would be able to relate to other people and especially the older people on the team. Or maybe like Lydia, she wants to fall into that like younger sister role, and that could potentially get her going places. Talking about the military and training for that could be relatable, but there's no one else on this season who is like, I guess, military or ex-military, but maybe they've got like family or friends in the military, which they could talk about.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people seem to lump in like military and first responders. So maybe like the retired firefighter could have something to talk about with that. So
So she'd be on what? The heroes tribe? This were heroes, healers, hustlers.
I guess.
But Swati, she seems very sweet in the videos. Definitely very intelligent and maybe coming across as like young or naive. So we'll definitely have to see how that goes.
Yeah, but I think it'll be interesting because she's like young, but she also, I feel like she could have something going for her there.
Yeah, so next up we have Tori, the penultimate person here, who is 25 from Oklahoma, now in Arkansas, and she is a eating disorder therapist. Um, your initial thoughts on Tori?
I think it's interesting because reading her interview, I got a totally different like vibe from her than I did watching her
Oh, I
videos.
agree. I agree.
And I feel like she did address that in one of her videos where she was like, I come across one way, but like in reality, I'm totally different. So I guess it's good that she's aware of that. And like personally, I like her video self a lot better than her like written self. So
I agree. I think the written self sort of comes off across as like, the answers are all sort of basic. She likes CrossFit, playing board games, dislikes people who are self aware, saying how she gets stereotyped for being a blonde, attractive woman. And so people then realize, oh, she's intelligent, she has depth, and then she's into super nerdy, weird things. So I felt like, those are sort of basic answers. I do wonder, her and Romeo, the pageant coach, Tori said that she competed in pageants in college and after college to help pay for college and her master's degree. So I do wonder, like, would they have beef there, or would they like hit it off because they're both in the pageant business? But I do think it's interesting how Tori is doing like eating disorder as an eating disorder therapist, like we are talking about with the negative connotations with pageants. Maybe her and Romeo will have beef.
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it's all connected because I feel like a lot of pageants still like encourage diet culture and stuff that can lead to eating disorders later along the line. So I think it'll definitely be a discussion between the two of them if they ever do meet, but I'm not sure if it will amount to anything. So I would love to
Yeah.
see that discussion though.
I know, it's really fascinating. I feel like there's not much like light shed on pageantry or even like fashion shows, like to be models and stuff like that. It could be very interesting. But Tori is one of the people that mentioned religion a lot in their interviews. So, for multiple questions, she talks about religion. So, it could be a good or a bad thing depending on like how she is on the island. Maybe she won't even bring up her religious background on the island, or maybe she talks about it a lot. But I agree, from the video interview, she like seems very, very friendly and like personable from the video interview, which didn't necessarily come across in her written word interviews.
We do have someone in the chat saying that Tori has had some controversy because she apparently has liked some Facebook posts that are anti-vax. So that'll be interesting to see if it plays out in any way, shape, or form. I feel like we mentioned this last season with like Sydney going globetrotting during the pandemic, but it's like I feel like a lot of people do not have like the patience or the like I guess, sympathy for people who are anti-vax, especially when you have people like Mariah, whose brother died because of COVID-19 before there was even a vaccine available. So, well, I feel like they avoid bringing up COVID on Survivor. Like they mentioned it a little bit last season, but it wasn't like as much of a focus as it might have been able to be. So we'll have to see if that ever plays out in any meaningful way.
Yeah, I guess is vaccination requirements not a requirement to be cast on these shows? Like, if you're
I
going to a
believe
foreign
that
country,
you're required to be vaccinated, but like you can be
you'll
vaccinated
have
and still
views.
like, yeah, be anti-vax views. Like, be like, if I had a choice, I wouldn't do it. But because they're making me, the tyrants at CBS. So
Uh, alas. Yeah, that's interesting. Tori also playing Sequester. All these people are playing all of these online versions.
you
Dang,
gotta
so everyone's a big
practice.
fan. Yeah. But yeah, Tori, it'll be interesting to see how I guess she comes across on the show, like we were talking about with like the views and like if she's bringing that up, maybe not. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about politics on the show. So maybe like you were saying they won't talk about COVID or vaccination statuses and stuff like that. But I feel like you're there for like 24/7, that kind of thing sort of comes up, even like you're not specifically talking politics, like from people's views of just other things that they're talking about, you can sort of glean like what kind of like thoughts they might have.
I think that one person specifically mentioned that they weren't going to talk about politics because they are a liberal leaning person who worked for more conservative leaning people. I think maybe it was the law clerk Daniel,
Yeah, I think
possibly.
Daniel, yeah, in the
Yeah, but
video interviews.
he was talking about how like, oh, I'm more liberal, but I've worked for conservatives and like people don't like to hear that. And so the thing is, I feel like when you're alone on an island with people 24/7, like you're gonna end up talking about politics eventually. It's not something that you can just avoid.
Yeah, especially like you got nothing to do. Stuff will just come up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, we have Zach, who is 22 from Florida and now is in Missouri. He is a student. Seems like a big fan, says his hobby, social strategy games. He says he's competitive and clever. I sort of think similar to Tori, his written answers weren't as good as when he was talking in his video.
The one thing that was like major red flags for me was that he his most embarrassing story was he had to do a swim test for Survivor, and after swimming one lap he went into the bathroom and puked all over the place, and it's like, bruh, I really hope that you've worked on swimming since then because you're gonna have to be swimming a lot more than one lap.
Yeah, what, Daniel as the alternate for Adam Klein? I feel like Zach could be the new Adam Klein.
Zach, for some reason, really reminded me of Donathan, and I'm not sure if it's just because they look similar or if like there was some vibe that was similar. But yeah,
Maybe. I feel like similar to Swati, Zach also being a college student, but 22, maybe junior, senior year. So he's like not a freshman, sophomore. So almost done college, maybe looking for full time career jobs now. But I feel like in his interviews, he really talked a lot about high school and college stuff, talking about his academic accomplishments, his grades, his scores, which, like, yes, you should be proud of that, brag about it, but also in a Survivor season where a lot of the people are many, many years out, like you got to have other things to talk about with them.
I thought it was funny because he mentioned like not wanting to tell people he's a debate champion just because like it would look bad because like speech and debate is an important skill to have in Survivor, and it's like, dude, maybe you shouldn't mention being a debate champion just because no one talks about high school.
Yeah, I was a debate champion in high school. Probably helped to get into like the colleges that he got into, definitely. But I feel like the skills from speech and debate, like he's probably good at talking, articulating points, would be good for Survivor. Like he was saying, if he made it to Final Tribal, people might be threatened because he would be able to articulate a good argument from speech and debate. So I can see the relationship there. But yeah, I guess I agree when would you ever bring up being a speech and debate champion? Because would you be talking that much about high school out there? But I feel like he's also aware of it, because in the video interview, he says, oh, talking about all of my high school accomplishments is one step removed from wearing my high school Letterman's jacket onto the island. Like, it's not relevant. So at least he realizes that. And being 22, probably junior, senior in college, like, he should have other things to talk about in college also, not from high school, because that's like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Is it like, did he just peak in high school? What's up with that?
Maybe. I like his awareness there, like talking about high school all the time will make him look super young. I feel like he looks young too. Maybe like 20. He and Swati could look the same age maybe, but yeah, I don't know. Zach just looks young, maybe not 22. I don't know.
Yeah, so Zach, I guess overall thoughts, I do not see him getting very far, but I've been wrong before. I think he could also very easily be like a Xander type.
Yeah, seems like could be a Xander type, but also like because he's tall and skinny, I feel like he'd be put into like the survivor nerd archetype just because like of that physical attribute.
Yeah, he needs to get buffer, I guess.
Take some of Jonathan's buffness if he wants to tone it back.
Yeah, steal Jonathan's buffness so Jonathan can pretend he's not super strong.
Yeah. J Train in the chat. Haven't seen that Holderness family video, but from them on The Amazing Race, they're really, really cool. I watched their like Amazing Race recap podcast to get like insights, and so they seem really cool and chill, and I like those podcasts from them. Haven't watched their like music video stuff, but they also say that Zach is a mix between Adam and Jonathan, like we were saying, Alyssa.
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't even know why I think he looks so much like Jonathan, because they really don't look alike, but like the vibes. It's the vibes.
Guess he goes to school in the South and from Florida. So Jonathan was from the South, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was all 18 people from this cast. Definitely let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of these 18 people. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Any people who you think will go far, or any people who are like major red flags right now, like blaring at us, like, oh, they might be a little bit sketchy on the island. Definitely let us know. Next week, we'll be doing a tribe assessment. So breaking down the 3 teams of 6, talking about who we think might get along, who might be the first boot of the tribe. Maybe we'll see like another green tribe that gets down to 2 this upcoming season.
Yep, and then the week after that, we'll probably be doing our boot list, talking about who we think is going to go home first, and why. And so, yeah, we really look forward to sharing more of this preseason stuff with you guys. We're getting so excited that Survivor 42 is just around the corner. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and we will see you guys next week.